Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome back, my dear students in grade 9, our students abroad and language schools. Today, inshallah, we will start our final revision, the third part for our story, A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. This is the third part of our final revision. Let's start with the first question. No, sir, I thought it proper to speak to you first in case there were other suitors. Suitors here معناها متقدمين للزواج. Charles Darnley, as I told you before, we have to say who said that quotation, to whom, and the occasion of that quotation. Charles Darnley said this to Dr. Manette when he came to ask him for Lucy's hand in marriage. He wanted to make sure that there were no other suitors to Miss Lucy. Also, he wanted to tell about his real identity. هويته الحقيقية. I don't wish there to be any secrets between us. I wish to tell you my real name and why I'm living in England. Charles Darnley said this to Dr. Manette when he asked for Lucy's hand in marriage. He wished to tell Dr. Manette about his real identity. كان يريد أن يخبره عن هويته الحقيقية، لكن دكتور مانيت رفض وقال له دعنا نؤجل هذا الأمر إلى يوم الزواج. I shall never be any better than I am now. I fear that I shall sink even lower. This is quotation was said by Sydney Carton to Lucy. Sydney Carton said these words to Lucy when she advised him to try to live a better life. Don't tell me now. If you and Lucy marry, you can tell me on your wedding day. تستطيع أن تخبرني في يوم الزواج. Dr. Manette said this to Darnley when he tried to tell him his secret, but Dr. Manette told him his secrets on their wedding day. Told him to tell him his secrets on their wedding day. Why didn't Carton propose to marry Lucy? This question was in the last exam last year. لماذا كارتون لم يتقدم للزواج من لوسي? Because he felt that he is unworthy of her love. He is a drunk and a failure with life. كان يشعر أنه غير جدير بها. The most important questions in chapter 8. Chapter 8 is a very short chapter. What did grave diggers find that night? They found that coffin was filled with paving stones and there was nobody. كان الكفن مليء بالأحجار وليس هناك أحد أو ليس هناك جثة في داخل الكفن. Why was the funeral procession الموكب الجنائزي very unusual? The people alongside the coffin were shouting, spies, spies, جواسيس. Who was Roger Cly? Roger Cly was a spy and one of the witnesses at Charles Darnley's trial. That was the one who was supposed to be in the coffin. Why did Jerry follow the funeral to graveyard? To watch the burial and know exactly which grave he would dig that night. Chapter 9, and this is the last chapter and the most important chapter in the first term. To be listed as doomed for destruction. نضعه في قائمة الاغتيالات في يوم التنفيذ. Defarge said this when he knew from the road mender It is mentioned sometimes road mender, and sometimes it is mentioned road fixer. Both of them are right. Road fixer is the same as road mender. How they killed Gaspard like an animal. They decided that all the race of the Evermont family must be put in the list of destruction. Also, they put the officials in the village. You knit very well, madam. John Parsard said this to Madame Defarge when Parsard was sent by the king to get information from Defarge and the wine shop. He wanted to begin a conversation with Madame Defarge, so he said that you knit very well, madam. John Parsard said this to Madame Defarge when he came to the wine shop and noticed her skillful knitting. She was at that moment registering his name in the list of destruction. Even if my wife kept the list in her head, she would never forget it, but the list is knitted in a special pattern and design so that it will always be plain as day to her. Comment. Defarge said this to the other Jacks. They feared that the list of their enemies might be forgotten, but he assured them that his wife kept the list in her mind and in a special pattern with her knitting. يبقى هنا احتفظت بقائمة في عقلها وقائمة غزلتها في الغزل الذي كانت تقوم به قائمة الاغتيالات. He will be put on my list as soon as I see him. Who said this to whom? Madame Defarge said this to her husband. They were talking about, of course, John Parsard. Whose name was going to be listed and why? John Parsard, the English spy. He was sent by the king to spy over the poor people of Saint-Antoine. Well, if the revolution comes during our lifetime, I hope for Lucy's Manett's sake that the fate keeps her husband out of France. This shows that Monsieur Defarge had some sympathy towards Lucy Manett and her husband Charles Darnley. كان يعني لديه بعض التعاطف تجاه لوسي مانيت وزوجها تشارلز دارني، بعكس زوجته التي كانت تكن كل حقد وكراهية لإيفرموند ومن ينتمي إلى إيفرموند. Defarge said this to his wife when John Parsard told them that Lucy was going to get married to the nephew of the Marquis. He wished that fate would keep Lucy and her husband away from France when the revolution comes. Fate will lead him where he has to go. Comment. القدر سوف يقود إلى حيث سوف يذهب. Comment. Madame Defarge said this to her husband, who wished that fate would keep Lucy and her husband Darnley away from the revolution. Madame Defarge pitied no one, and she was determined to get her revenge from the Marquis family and their race wherever they were. This is the end of our questions. Now, my dear students, I will display to you, or I will show to you some of the questions that are mentioned in the last exams or the exams of the few years ago, the last few years ago. Third year preparatory exam for our sons abroad. This is the exam questions of the last year. Comment on two of the following. Come, child, and you see that, my dear student, that most of these questions are answered in my review in the first and second and third revision. First part, second part, and third part. Come, child, we are going to see your father. This quotation was said by Mr. Lorry to Lucy Manet. I am disappointed with life. I am a failure at everything. This quotation was said by Sidney Carton to Charles Darnley. This property and my country are both lost to me. This quotation was said by Charles Darnley to his uncle when he wanted to change his treatment to the peasants. This is the short answer, of course. Answer 3. What did the poor people of Saint-Antoine do when the cask of wine broke? They gathered and they drank wine that was mixed with mud. What effect had prison left on the Dr. Manet? He became a wreck of a man. He was uncertain of everything, and he almost lost his mind. He even forgot his name. What was Charles Darnley accused of? He was accused of being a spy that collecting information for behalf of France. Why didn't Carton propose to marry Lucy? Because he thought that he is unworthy of her love. Answer 3. We have mistreated the people and now we are paying for it. Comment. This quotation was said by Charles Darnley to his uncle when he wanted to reconsider treating the peasants in a good way. When did the story begin? It began in 1775. Why was the road fixer staring at the Marquis's carriage? Because he saw that someone was hanging on the back of the carriage or the chains of the carriage that was Gaspard when he was going to take revenge from the Marquis Evermond after he killed his son under the wheels of his carriage. Why was the Marquis angry while leaving the king's reception? Because he was ignored by the king. How did Madame Defarge keep the register? By knitting the names in her knitting while she was knitting the names. Why did John Parsard visit the wine shop? To get information about the jacks. Was his visit successful? No, because Madame Defarge was smart enough that he couldn't get any information from her. It's extraordinary to me that you people cannot take care of yourselves and your children. This quotation was said by the Evermond after he had killed the boy under the wheels of his carriage. In fact, her husband to be is a new of Marquis that Gaspard killed. In fact, her husband to be is a nephew. This is a nephew. A nephew of Marquis that Gaspard killed. These words were said by Parsard to Madame Defarge. He wanted to see the reaction of Madame Defarge and Monsieur Defarge about the information that Charles Darnley would marry Lucy Manet. Answer: what did the fixer of the road tell the other jacks about Gaspard? That he was hanged in a gallows and after he had escaped for months and months. He is ready for his tomb from the jacks. This was the note that Gaspard had written on the handle of the knife after he had killed the Evermont. Why did Devarge believe that it was better for the child to die? Because the people were living in very bad conditions, and the boy will suffer from his injuries, so it's better for him to die. What did this show about the conditions these people lived in? This showed that the people were living in very bad conditions and were living in poverty and misery life. Why couldn't the sixth witness identify Darnley? Because Mr. Stryver used the benefit or the advantage of resemblance between Charles Darnley and Sidney Carton, so as to make the sixth witness confused about his witness, so he couldn't identify which one he had seen. This is the end of our revision, and this is the end of our session today, my dear students. I hope that you have get the benefit from this revision. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being with me. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Till we meet in the next video, we will answer some model exams, inshallah, AL and OL. Thank you and goodbye.